Hey everybody, Tom Barnes, Chicago Scene, downtown Chicago at the Chicago Fine Arts Building. You're looking at the Studebaker Theater, getting renovated for the first time, fully renovated like it's going to be here in like 125 years, because that's about how old this place is. My friend Jacob with the Chicago Fine Arts Building and the Studebaker is here to tell me all about it. How are you, sir?
Hey, good man, how are you?
I'm great. I'm nerding out just because this is like one of my favorite things to do is check out old buildings in the city. Yeah. And the Studebaker is definitely one of the oldest buildings in the city, definitely one of the oldest theaters. Yeah. Getting a new facelift. Talk about that.
It's a jewel. It is a jewel of Chicago arts and culture. It's a jewel of Chicago theater. I still can't believe how exciting this moment is for us, for Chicago, for the arts and culture sector. The Studebaker Theater is over a century old.
Right.
It really debuted in 1900 as an opera house and has been welcoming audiences for over a century. And it's really an incredible moment to give Michigan Avenue this rebirth and bring audiences back to the theater in a really, really big way. A lot of what we're doing is restoring and renovating the theater in its original glory, so to speak, but bringing it up to modernizing with its AV infrastructure, its production infrastructure, and making sure that it's a comfortable and welcoming place for audiences.
Right, and you were talking about earlier, there's a new floor being put in, both on the main level here and the balcony up there. I mean, there's guys working up there right now getting this ready to go to be installed with the new seating and everything. I imagine, though, that renovating a building this old and a building that's had many different chapters in its history has come with a few unforeseen issues, let's say.
Sure.
Right?
It's certainly not without its challenges. You know, there's a lot of you don't know until you know.
Right.
You know, when we're demoing a wall, we don't really know what we're going to find behind it. That's part of the exciting part about it. You know, we're really getting to understand what came before us, where the even just the ghosts in the building are, where people, in like understanding what iterations, what formations this space has been in, has taken shape, and allowing that to inform how we move forward. You know, so a lot of that, a lot of those challenges are really kind of incredible opportunities to understand what this room did before we got here.
Right, and at recent history, it was a movie theater in the 80s and 90s. Then it kind of just closed for a while. It sat dormant, and then a few years ago, it was brought back online as part of just the rebirth of this building itself. And this is now what you guys have been working towards, is getting this thing completely retrofitted to look the way it did years ago, but with the modern amenities of a performing arts space.
Yeah, when Berger Realty Group bought this building in 2005, it was always the intention and desire to reignite these spaces and really bring them back to life. And now's the moment. You know, we found the opportunity to do it, and it's a really exciting chance to reactivate these spaces and bring a 125-year-old theater back to life.
Right, and so much so that even the ceiling, you guys were very careful, and you need to put in a lighting grid or truss, right? Where you're really careful about where you would put the holes to hold that, and you also use some modern technology to replicate part of the ceiling to make it look seamless throughout.
Yeah. So the ceiling is like the original piece of architecture of this room, of when it was originally conceived. So obviously, yes, great care comes with that responsibility of maintaining that, right? And what you're referring to is one of my favorite sort of anecdotes about the ceiling, is because it's so beautiful and historic, you know, it wants to be preserved. So when things happen, when changes need to happen, or even if a pipe bursts, you know, we are able to use 3D printing technology to replicate portions of the ceiling so we still keep it restored, you know, in its glory.
Right, and speaking of its glory, when it does come back online, when it's all done and renovated and these seats are put in and everything else, what types of shows should people expect to be able to see here?
Well, one of the things about the Fine Arts Building that's so cool and unique is it really is this cultural hub. It's like a potpourri of all the various types of artisans in Chicago have studios and offices here in the building. So it's really important for us to have these stages be representative of that mixture and diversity of programming as well. So you'll see opera, you'll see ballet, you'll see musicals and plays, and even orchestra concerts. When we reopen for live performances in the spring, one of the very first things that you'll see on stage is Chicago Opera Theater's production and a Chicago Youth Symphony Orchestra production.
And it's just a wonderful experience to be in here because, like you were talking about earlier, finding different little nooks and crannies where you find old newspaper on the ground, and a whole other room kind of just presented itself to you guys where it's not quite in the full reno yet just because you're getting this done, but talk about the Carriage House. Carriage House, I say?
Carriage Hall.
Carriage Hall, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Carriage Hall next door. We got a little sneak peek of that. Talk about that.
Yeah, we will be unveiling Carriage Hall soon. It does have a longer lead time, obviously, because we're taking a bit more time and care with that space because we are really doing a full gut rehab.
Right, and that one's be more modern versus
modern.
This one's going to kind of pay homage to the way it was back in the day.
That's right. It's very important that we preserve sort of the time capsule of this jewel.
Absolutely.
So when you walk into this space, it will feel a little bit like you're transporting back in time. But when you go into Carriage Hall for a show or for an event, that's now, that's fresh, it's contemporary. It wants to be the dopest room in Chicago, right? So we're conceiving it and imagining it as a multidisciplinary theatrical event space. So it's a place where you can see plays, you can see theater, but you'll also see live music, and it's also an event space.
Right,
Where companies can host events or parties.
Right, we were talking before, and the proximity to Lollapalooza can only help that cause and really bring Michigan Avenue. There's a couple of things on Michigan Avenue, but this is something truly unique that was the OG, really.
Yeah.
So it's good to have it be back online, and people will be looking for this. Yeah. When is the timetable for this to open up for people to come inside and take a look?
So the Studebaker is coming back online for live performances this spring.
Super quick.
Yeah. We are
how long
not
you been
wasting
working
any
on this?
time. This has been ongoing for it's been in the works for years and in active work for the last year. So we've been going at it.
So you took advantage of the pandemic times that we're in just to kind of get this taken care of, where
it certainly presented itself as an opportunity.
Yeah,
sure. And also, as a result of the pandemic, Chicago has lost some really important venues in town. And so it also sort of is a unique moment where we're bringing these venues back to life at the moment when other venues in town are shuttering their doors.
Right.
So hopefully we can help fill some of those holes that I think a lot of folks, especially in the theater community, are starting to feel.
Right, and before, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that this is in the Fine Arts Building here on Michigan Avenue downtown, which by itself is a whole historical experience. I mean, one of the only, I'm not sure if it's the only, but a manually operated elevator, among other things, tenants, all sorts of, you mentioned where this is the only place where you can get your violin worked on, right?
Yeah, we have so many different local artisans, from architects to music, instrument manufacturers and repair shops. Yeah, it is one of the only places in the city where you can get your violin bow resewn. There's all that kind of magic in the building. But what's sort of coincidental and sort of serendipitous for me personally is when I was first thinking about moving to Chicago, I have a friend who's a local musician who said, I have to take you to the Fine Arts Building. You need to see this place. So this was one of the very first places that I was ever introduced to as a Chicagoan. But I tell people all the time, just come to the building and walk around and get lost.
And people can do that.
People can do that. Mm-hmm. There are murals on the 10th floor that are 100 years old. And the architecture in this room is absolutely stunning. There is a sheet music store, there's a bookstore, there's so many things that you can do.
It's like a mini university right here for the fine arts.
While we're sandwiched in between 3 major universities here downtown.
Right.
But we have the Art Institute right down the street. We have Grant Park right across the street. We're in this really sort of remarkable spot in Michigan Avenue that's really ripe for a bit of a rebirth.
Well, that rebirth happening this spring. Is there social medias that you have that you want people to follow for people to see the updates of any of this progress?
Absolutely. You can check out our website, fineartsbuilding.com, and you can find us on Instagram and Facebook at Fine Arts Building.
Fantastic. Jacob, thank you very much for hanging out with me and giving me the tour. I really do appreciate it.
Thanks
Super
for coming.
Cool. Yeah, I totally nerded out. That's what I do. TBARNAS at WGNTV.com. If you have a suggestion for the Chicago scene, that's TBarness at WGNTV.com. Thank you, Jacob. I appreciate it.
Thanks.
We'll see you here in the spring.
Cheers, mate.